wave your hands, wave your hands, wave your hands. Come on, come on, come on. I know you're sleeping now. You gotta wake up some more, yeah? Okay, let's go. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us, oh. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not go. I said we tired with their lies. We tired with their promises that led us to all our damages. We tired with their speech they preach in thee and now unique they deceive us. The thing we saw it frustrate us. So why can't you lie? Why can't you steal? Why can't you allow the citizens to be? You see, we just tell you that's why we voted you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and later on abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us, oh. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not corrupt. No one to trust. My people, no one to hope on. Nobody. My hope that I have been broken. I'm telling you, brother. So where are the schools? Where are the roads? Where are the jobs that they say they could afford? But they're too selfish. The people tired with their rhetoric. People tired, they tired. You see the reason why we ask why the government betray. They have enough of time, but yeah, then instead they delay. People suffer. No work for people crying for hunger. Look at. Your vision and your mission, your intention to the nation, they poor. You got nothing to show. Nothing. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. They lie. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us, oh. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not corrupt. With their promises that led us to all our damages. We tired with that speech they preach in thee and now unique they deceive us. The thing we saw it frustrate us. So why can't you lie? Why can't you steal? Why can't you allow the citizens to be? You see, we just tell you that's why we voted you. But you fool us. You screw us, you use us and later on abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie.
This, yeah.
Isaac, your sound is gone. The sound plays fine when the music is playing, but now I get no sound from you.
You still getting no sound from me? It's crazy. It's on a strictly the phone, so I don't know.
That's correct. I'm hearing something in your background.
Can you hear me, Mike?
Yeah, but you got echo because your mic is on your phone. Just go ahead and switch because the reception is now better on your computer.
Is
It's
it better?
dark,
Can
but
you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you, but you know, your lighting is
No,
poor.
I cannot hear you. The technical difficulties are crazy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, much better. Okay, folks, we are starting.
Improve your lighting.
No, I mean, how should I say it? I got the blinds drawn. You can see me enough?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's good as up. I'm good.
Yeah, you leaning to the side, but you know, hopefully, because you halfway cut. All right, so I'm just trying to be in the middle here. So, how's your day?
My day's going fine. Day's going
Okay.
fine.
So, I think we got a couple of main topics today, but let's say hello to the folks out there who taking the time to engage us and check us out on this show. Two big issues on the ground. The census is the major one, and we've been on that for a while now. We've been back and forth with it. But just to bring things up to speed, I believe tomorrow is supposed to be a holiday to kick off the census. Yes, the president had issued a proclamation. And, you know, everything with this government will be first in history. And I don't remember 10 years ago, well, 2008, 14 years ago, whether the census day was declared a holiday or not. But it's not just about the holiday. It's about the census itself, the preparation, the planning, the organization, and the capability of implementing the census. So I know I sent you a clip where the Deputy Director for Statistics, Deputy Director General for Statistics, had a very dismal position on the potential of the census being able to be implemented adequately and to get the right results. So, what are your thoughts on the census? And
My thoughts, Isaac, are the same as they've always been. Okay, we don't plan to fail. We fail to plan. Okay, you know, the deadlines that they have are hard deadlines now. They can't be moved. So I just think the time is too short, and it's a disservice to the Liberian people. Because here's the other thing. If you do this census now, this means that you're not going to do another one for another 10 years. Okay? But the current population of Liberia stands at about 4.5 million.
Well, for some it's 5.1, 5.2, but
okay. Let me just take a look at some stuff here.
Are you trying to check out population?
Okay, so if you look on populationpyramid.net, it estimates that the population of Liberia in 2032 will be 6.6 million.
Okay.
Okay. If the census is done incorrectly now, and you're not going to be counting until you have another, 30% increase in your population, that becomes a problem.
It's a big problem because they do it every 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason why over time they have chosen 10 years as a time frame because of age cohort, and they believe that's like a generation. Typically, a decade is looked at as a generational cohort. So if you're not actually counting the people right this time, when the census will be used for elections, it will be used for basically most demographic studies. Anything you want to do in terms of your population, your economic planning, everything will be centered around your census. And to not get it right is a major problem. Even when you go to funders, you go to other people and try to make a case, the data from the census helps you to make that case. I can hear you. I cannot hear you. I can hear you. You're on mute. You went back on mute. You're still on mute.
Okay, I think we're on now, right?
Yes, you're on.
Damn it, this piece of crap.
Are your computer you causing?
Now?
Yes, we can hear you. You straight?
Oh, this damn technical thing, man. So can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
I can't hear you.
Oh my God. Yeah, I think. All right, so we gotta ask our audience. Can you guys hear me? Can you hear George?
Okay, I got sound now.
Okay. So that means you can hear me.
What's going on? Nothing?
I can hear you.
Let me close that.
Nathaniel, can you hear me? Yeah, there's people say they can hear me, Josh. I can hear you, but it seems like you cannot hear me. Seems like there's a sound war going on. But yeah, folks, as you know, as I was saying,
Testing.
we can hear the test.
Testing.
The census has been really plagued with a lot of issues. From the enumerators, actually, let's start with the facilitators. The whole training situation. It was not clear. There was no contract between the government and those who were being facilitators. Then they identified people to train. They play around with the training list. They added their own people, whoever this is, on the list. And a lot of people are blaming Wilmer Smith, who is the acting, and actually he should not be the acting director general. Based on the act that created the ListGIS, the Liberia Institute for Statistics and Geo Information Services, he's not supposed to be the person. The deputy for statistics should act in the absence of the overall director general. And they have not done that. They have pushed him to the side simply because he wants things to be right. He wants to do things the right way. So it's been very difficult for him to get his voice heard. And he's the main and probably only qualified person over there that understands statistics, that understands that has been trained on how to do census. He did the pre-census, and was very successful. And a lot of people since have been saying We want that young team that did that to come back. Um, so until we get the right group of people doing this, that's the first thing. We don't have a chance for having a good census. The census is very, very critical to our national development planning, to all the kind of reporting, to some of the human development, results that come out of there, how they ask the questions they ask people, the amount of people in the household, the ages of people, the health status of people, the physical health, whether they are disabled or not. So those are all questions that are asked these people during the census. A whole bunch of questions that the enumerators go from door to door asking people. And I've gotten messages from some of the enumerators or the people in payouts who are going back to Monrovia. And that's the thing. Many of the enumerators are selected out of the Monrovia area. So if these folks are not, from the local area, they got to travel there and then travel back. When do they get them back? What is the real planning around the areas that it was supposed to focus on, for each of these different people? Because the whole idea is you got to canvas like the time frame before you actually do the census. And the guy who's Alex Williams, who's the Director General for Statistics, he said, the Deputy Director General for Statistics, he said all that. I'll see if I can play the clip that was being sent around, with his voice, and he's very clear on it about what should be done and what is not being done. And what is not being done is a total disservice to the Liberian people, because if we don't do this census right, we end up buying, because the elections depends on the census. The threshold that will be set in terms of the population depends on the census. So typically the districts are supposed to be divided evenly. The districts are supposed to be divided evenly. And if that cannot happen, then the people are at a disadvantage already in some places in terms of representation. So until we can do this thing right, just doing it for doing its sake will be a problem. So I hope the opposition is aware, because if they don't take the right position on this and try to stop this census from happening like one or two lawmakers are trying to do, it will be a serious problem for Liberia for the next 10 years. We'll be behind in terms of data, in terms of statistics, in terms of what we know of our people. Because
so here's my take on the things we can do.
Mm-hmm.
We have both a census issue and we have a national identification issue.
Right.
Okay. We also have a vital records issue. All right.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have to find some way to get all of these things to work towards one goal. Okay. And it seems as if we're at where the census and the NEC's election thing
Mm-hmm.
are just all need to be done, but they're all being done in different directions.
Yes, but to be honest, though, initially they were kind of aligned, right? Because the amalgamated units in terms of the different districts, the precincts and stuff like that, they were working with the census folks. There was some alignment there. Unfortunately,
Right.
because of timing and how they have messed up, so everything is misaligned now.
Right. And we also need to, So if we look at this and there's the opportunity to restart all these processes, one of the things we need to also look at is vital records, reporting of births and deaths. And, you know, there are SMS systems that can be designed to report this data.
Some of them out there already, George. It's just about, you know, people
Right.
who are
So
what exists, what tools can help them.
So even after you get your initial count with the census, you can augment that data with the vital records data and say, you know, that in this district, there were so many people born, so many people died. And you can bring all of those things together. And I just think that we're constantly stuck in everybody just moving in different directions.
Because we don't think holistically, we don't think for the benefit of the group, and people got their personal agendas, especially when it comes to the funding side. They want that money for themselves. They're not,
Right.
They're not interested in the country. They're not interested in really making a difference for the people. They primarily want to have access to that budget that they can do anything with. If you look at the Legislative bank account and see the kind of payments that have been coming out of there, and, you know, sometimes them trying to explain what the payment is for, it's like people just need to go to jail. That's exactly where most people need to go. The people who play around with the country's money like they're doing, they need to go to jail.
So, you know, my understanding of LISGIS is that it's a service bureau to all of the other government agencies that need data services.
You can look at it like that, but do they operate in that role? You know?
Right. And so, you know, when you have a government agency that's supposed to work as a service bureau, that agency really doesn't have, they have a baseline operational budget, but as different agencies or different need certain things, let's say they pay for those services to LISGIS.
Yes.
So they was go to LISGIS and say, we need XYZ done. LISGIS will say, this is what it's going to cost you guys, and it will come from the budget of that agency.
That's how it should be in the operational and functional world.
Okay,
Whether
so
it's in Liberia, I'm not sure. You know, and people take all this stuff for granted somehow, and I'm not sure how they think this country can move forward, because everything is tied in together. National identification is tied into so many different places. The Bureau of you know, or the LISGIS folks, there are a lot of other agencies dependent on them. So until people can recognize these dependencies,
right. I mean, and now that you said Bureau of, let me just throw in immigration and naturalization, because if you look at the census, is supposed to count everybody's living in the country.
Right. So, for example, let's take a simple example.
So where are all of the different population data sources that can be brought together to at least give you a fairly decent estimate?
And that's where it comes from. That's what LISGIS is supposed to do. So you can look at the information LISGIS give you, because they count the foreigners, they count the non-Liberians too. So you can get an estimate. If you say people only, you know, non-resident people or non-Liberian people who are residents are only getting 2-year permits, you can look at what you expect for immigration, you know,
right,
for revenue generation, for people who come and pay for permits, and looking at back records, you can project how people are coming. So all of these things are tied together, but unfortunately, our people don't seem to think there is some connection, some integration, some dependencies among all these different functions in government. They think people just created ministry, bureaus, agencies, and public corporations just to create them. No, most of them got purposes. And if you can look at the act that created these things and try to see how your mandate
and how they align.
Yes, how interfaces and align with other government ministries and work to that level.
And the other thing about these acts is that when they create them, it doesn't seem as if there's any forethought given to, is there an existing function in the government that this act replaces?
A lot of times
so that function is offset.
Is unique and is not duplicated. And if there's some need for that other agency that probably had that function for you to be dependent on them or vice versa, then you're built. There can be memorandum of understanding between intra-government agencies. They got to work together, but it just seems like it's so non-existent. And that affects the smooth operations of government. You know, I mean, everything data can help you project your traffic, can help you project, you know, your subsidy to people, how many old people you got, how fast they're getting, you know, your old population is developing. All of those things are important. Unfortunately, we don't respect data, we don't use data properly, and it's just, you know, a major problem in our country in terms of data. It just, that mindset doesn't exist. How we bring it to bear, we got like this, we got to keep talking about it until, you know, some people can start a year, some people can work on going to school and doing all that, you know. So it's just what we have. It's just what we have. And it's very unfortunate. Even you look at the census, right? The whole census is supposed to be every 10 years. Since 2018, that's a constitutional requirement. What happened when there are violations to constitutional requirements?
Well, I mean, you got to look at, you know, it's in the hands of the executive.
Exactly. And it has become egregious to the point where 2018 it wasn't done, 2019 it wasn't done, 2020 it wasn't done, 2021 it wasn't done, 2022 they're trying to do it, but it's a complete mess. Okay, so violations for constitution sometimes they cause for impeachment, especially when they're egregious and repetitive. And that is not the only violation, you know, this president has violated the Constitution with. There are multiple ones.
So I understand that, and I just think that, you know, I'm not sure that Liberians have stomach for impeachment. You know,
probably not. Probably not, because, you know, impeachment looks like.
But we don't even have the ability to recall.
No, we can't recall. I've been from a recall provision, especially for lawmakers forever. That's 6 years too long, that 9 years too long. When you can't perform, the people should be able to say, look, we got 50,000 signatures here, or at least 50% of what the district population is. If it's 33,000 voters in our place, you say we got 16,500 people here who don't want this person because they can't perform. A recall provision, I think, is a good thing.
So I think, you know, I don't like to get into these discussions, but it always comes back to the entire structure of the government is bad.
It's flawed. It's not efficient.
Okay.
That one part, no, I don't think anybody can
agree with you. 9 years for a senator, I think that's a bad deal. It's a bad deal for the people.
It's a very, very bad deal, especially when you don't have a recall provision and they have no alternative but to say they're just stuck with that particular individual who is ineffective. I mean, There's some lawmakers who say they pay for their position so they can do anything for the people they don't care. And they can move them. They got to stay their term out.
So I mean, the question is, are we willing to look at in the next government a new constitutional convention?
That has to be on the table.
Because
amendment has to be on the significant.
Well, I don't even. Yes, okay, amendment. Yes.
No, you can start a whole new constitution. I mean, no,
Okay, so
some things, and you can make it progressive. You can make them build on each other. If you got a long-term vision about where you want the constitution to be in the next, 10, 15, whatever years.
Okay, so if you look at Article 3,
right?
Okay, it says it's a unitary sovereign state divided into counties for administrative purposes. A form of government is a republic with 3 separate coordinate branches consisting blah blah blah. No person holding office in one can hold office in another. So it doesn't say, for example, for example, in Article 3, anything about decentralizing the government as we speak, as we talk about decentralization, where these counties or political units manage themselves.
To some extent,
that's kind of.
If people should be electing their own chiefs and stuff like that, yes, it does.
But it doesn't say the election of the superintendent or people like that and how they will be tied to Monrovia. So I think we kind of need
there's a decentralization law that's on the table, and for some people, the thing is not deep enough into the economic decentralization. The stuff we talk about, where the people can benefit from returns with economic returns from within their areas, whether it's concession.
So you can't do that decentralization unless you're going to restructure the political nature of the county, that economic decentralization, because some counties are economically not viable. Yes. Some counties are not economically viable.
Well,
yes. Isaac, how much revenue does River G generate? River says, how much revenue do they generate? How many people do they have? Projects?
There's a lot of logs coming, but again, it's about creating the economic activity.
But the logs aren't being cut in River G, are they? They're being cut in Grand G there.
That's not the only place. I'm not exactly sure what the primary economic stuff, but you got to help communities. That's part of government, though. You got to help communities be vibrant.
But they can't decentralize if they don't have a strong enough base of support. I go back to, let's divide the country into three regions that have a similar economic, platform, and that way they can spread development. So, for example, let's say you're up in Nimba somewhere. It's important to you to build roads all the way to the coast.
Yeah, but your county doesn't come to the coast, right? So it's about how we integrate government, in these individual administrative, breakouts. And right now, everything in a silo. I don't even know if there's any kind of joint, let's say, project in Liberia.
Between the logs being taken from Grand G there, they have to be shipped out of Sino. You follow what I'm saying? So it's important that the roads in Sino are good enough to transport those logs.
You know, I go back to when Madame Salif and then we're starting off, they did all these different county development agenda. And you know what a vision statement for River G is, for example? A
What?
unified, peaceful, and well-governed county with robust socioeconomic and infrastructure development for all. And what have they done there since that time?
Right. So what does that mean? Right? So I'm just looking at my map of Liberia, and I'm looking at let me just bring this up real quick.
And guess what? In River G, subsistence farming was 92% of the economy.
Right.
So how can you not make agriculture a key part?
Yeah, but how many people live in River G, Isaac?
But you don't need as many people to make it an agricultural hub. The population there can be that hub, but they have to move their products.
Okay, so let me just say this to you, right?
Yeah.
The 5 largest counties in Liberia have no access to the coast. They're all landlocked.
Yes.
Okay. So in all, Lofa, Gapulu, Bong, Nimba, and Granjide.
Okay.
They're all landlocked.
Largest land areas. They are on the top. They are on the northern part.
Right.
Everybody else kind of.
So the idea of inter-county connectors to get whatever it is they're producing in a road distribution network into the port, if Liberia is ever going to be an exporter nation of things other than logs, they need those roads.
Logs, iron ore, you know.
Right.
Rubber, we've had those. That's why the road from Firestone to Grand Bassa were decent. The road from Nimba to Bassa was decent. Even bombing to Montserrat with the bomb mines, operation. So they were just there for that. But in terms of expanding that,
they didn't bring any other type of development that would have broadened the economic base.
Right. And that's how the whole concession arrangement needs to change.
Right.
Because we're not focusing on how we grow other areas, how we can expand the economic pie. It's just about what can we get from this one, concession today. You even look at the Meta Steel and the relationship with these HPX people that are coming out of Guinea and want to ship their ore. Government should be focusing on how they can integrate that to make it benefit that entire corridor.
Exactly.
And expand out. Because from that railway and being able to really, there's a significant Guinean population in that area that can be beneficial to trade for Liberia if we're serious.
Yep.
So how we look at the big picture is just critical. And it doesn't seem like our people are thinking just like, what can I make on the Meta Steel today? How much we can get the people for us to be able to sign a contract quick. 5 million, 10 million, 20 million, but the potential for the entire country itself is huge, but it's just not being recognized, and that long-term thinking is not there. You look at the farming families versus the rest of the people, it's like, it's interesting to look back at these development agendas. Now and then I do it and look back, and it's like, how
again, I just believe, to my core, that the current subdivision system retards our development.
No, but it does. It does. I agree with that model that we keep the lawmakers as they are, right? Because you don't want to shift people. Even with the whole census, the population will change. So how do you, once this population changes, how do you find a way for because some people have migrated from some of these places, right?
Right.
Some of the population will be less in some of these places. And that's why the model you're offering, they can still have their lawmaker or whatever, but the bigger economic or ecosystem from a county perspective or from, an administrative structure that's viable both administratively and economically has to be restructured. And we don't do anything about that. And it ties, again, the census can feed you information that can help you.
And even when you talk about the population centers, I mean, another thing that affects development is the fact that Monrovia has placed the country in this vicious cycle of trying to constantly provide services to a population that they can't provide all the services to, but because it's the only place that services are being provided, it encourages migration from other places to come and get whatever services that are there.
Fact.
So we need to look at a depopulation plan for Monrovia, where we will stop spending development dollars on Monrovia and put those development dollars in other places to encourage people to move.
People have suggested two different ways. One, move the capital.
No.
No. Hold up.
Okay.
That moving the capital was in play. The administrative capital was supposed to be moved to Zekepa at the intersection of Basel, Roses, and Nima and Bong, somewhere there, right now.
Okay, and what's the second option?
The second option is decentralization, real decentralization of services and people being able to own their economies.
If you build it, they will come. Because the whole idea of moving the capital city is the idea that if we move the government, everybody will move there.
Right. That's true.
Okay. That's the idea behind it.
That's not the solution.
That's not the solution. So let's just look at energy, for example, which is the primary reason people tend to move to Monrovia.
Yeah.
So suppose we can distribute energy in a more efficient way.
But with energy coming with the CISLG, the Côte d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Guinea line. And with
why do you guys always want to include Liberia in those things? The West African Power Pool, Liberia can't even pay its portion of its bills.
Well, George, it's there.
It's Isaac,
for us to leverage. But
to leverage for how far? So let's do the Côte d'Ivoire, Liberia, Guinea. You're only talking about the northern counties. You're not bringing energy. Liberia cannot be dependent on energy in some parts of Bassa or Sino for that energy to be transported from Guinea.
But again, George, the lines, the generation of energy is there. Even the generation right at Mount Coffee right now, what is it, 88 megawatts or more?
And we can't transport that energy. That's the problem.
We can't transmit it. We can't transmit it properly.
Right. So getting involved in these power pools will have us end up with what I call energy deserts, where all of the border towns or the border areas to those countries will have energy that's dependent on our relationship with those countries. But as you come towards the coast, you will not have that. So my question is, why don't we have a 5 to 10 year plan where, say, we're going to invest $200 million in energy projects across the country?
Well, what did you open this discussion with?
Coordination.
No. When you don't
plan. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's no real planning. And for the longest time, maybe you have drawn me this, we have said, let us legislate a development plan. Whatever we think will get us to 2030, 2040, 2050, and be able to come back and change legislation around it. If we don't legislate that, anybody come, they will do their own thing. today, whatever, foundation Ellen laid, which for me was not adequate, this government is probably doing something different. They didn't really.
Let's look at RIA, right? You're not going to bring power from Nimba to RIA, from the border of Guinea and Yekepa to Marshall.
No, but again,
okay. But RIA, RIA wants $23 million for power, just for RIA.
Our Twitter trying to get money in their pocket, man. Come on.
Right, but if we bring people in who would say, let's talk about the places in Liberia we can deploy 10 to 15 megawatt solar plants throughout the country.
Well, I agree with that strategic look at the entire country on its energy needs, the growth corridors, the economic corridors, and being able to put power there. But it also comes with changing mindset of people, though. Most people believe in stealing current today, even if people can afford to pay.
But
and sometimes because service is poor, that's why these people actually do their own connections and all.
Okay, now you see we're tying everything together.
It is together.
Why is it easier to steal current in Liberia?
Identification, metering.
Because you haven't identified the properties. You haven't identified.
Say, oh, this particular area, current coming from there, that's what not built. You turn it off.
Exactly. I can show you the power consumption for my home in the summer versus the winter.
Because you got a bill that demonstrates that and you can trend it.
Right. And there's an average even for my neighbor. So if my power consumption goes up by 25%, guess what? The power company wants to know what's going on with you. Even if my water usage goes up, they want to know what's going on with me.
What I asked about water the other day, somebody said, just forget it.
Right. So we had this discussion before about LEC and people stealing current. LEC doesn't seem to understand that it's not simply metering. They are also tied in with property identification.
It all ties in, George.
Okay. It all ties in. And if we don't do all those things simultaneously, we just
have to do it simultaneously, George.
In this rut.
We can do A today, 3 days from now we do B, 5 days from now we do C, but the end we get to F. If we can't do it that way, because sometimes there's just not the capacity or the resources to do everything simultaneously. But it has to be planned, and we have to go by that plan to get to that thing where all our stuff is integrated, and nobody seems to want to make it that way.
So you look at places like Greenville. Where does Greenville get its power from? Right?
The question is, do they get power?
Right. So and Greenville happens to also be a port. So that means they have an energy need. Why not put a solar plant in Greenville? So that the port can run 24/7.
And we got a renewable energy agency. I forgot what the acronym is. And at one point, I really thought they were going to make that difference because there were just huge opportunities for renewable energy. But it seemed like everything just stifles or slows down, whatever that reason is in Liberia.
So if you can expand power in Greenville, people will move to Greenville.
George, the decongestion comes with serious decentralization of agricultural efforts. Most of our people are already agrarian. Many of them do not have, yes, we can get some service sectors in Liberia and we got to train our people. That's possible. But the lowest hanging fruit for job creation, for decongestion, for increasing input, for increasing food security, all of those are agriculture based. And until we look in that direction, we got problems. We have to look toward the agriculture sector. I saw an article from somebody today, from our schoolmate, the Minister of Agriculture, where she was trying to state some of the gains and, admitting that she started on a tough note due to the corona outbreak. But despite that, she is now energized with significant progress made over the last 2.5 years in moving the Ministry of Agriculture, especially promoting policies for accelerating the agriculture sector in accordance with the government of Liberia's PAPD. So let me see where exactly is she saying. Asking about local food production, the minister observed that a lot of Liberia's focus on only rice is a challenging component of the revitalization process of the Ministry of Agriculture through public awareness to ensuring Liberians diversify their diet and accelerate mechanized farming.
I disagree.
If this market, I believe, was an open and competitive market, the people will get it rice, and rice will not be an issue.
I disagree. So basically, what the minister is saying, and I love the minister, she's my classmate, but what the minister is saying is, we can't seem to get our act together to grow rice, so you stop eating rice.
Yes, there are several people who are aligned with you.
Okay.
In terms of that, but just for me, from a nutritious perspective, and for developing other products on the market, yes, I support diversification of diet. But
we don't have the capacity to produce those other things on the scale that would even allow us to replace rice.
Oh, I agree.
We don't have the capacity.
I agree. I mean, the rice that we can actually eat, we can grow it in our planting. We're growing enough in our banana or
right.
Or
right. But when you think about the things that we eat rice with, right? Are you going to eat flour sauce and cassava?
Why you gonna eat
it? I won't. You will eat plenty of palm butter. Come on now. Maybe if you started off eating plenty and palm butter, it's a good deal. It's not a good deal for me, right? It isn't. I want flour sauce and rice. I mean, yeah, people don't eat flour sauce and fufu, right? Okay. They do that. Okay, but I want flour sauce and rice. I don't eat fufu. I don't eat dumbo. I don't eat cake.
But
so that's me.
But that kind of exactly. So somebody like you not gonna change your diet for nothing,
right? But at the meantime, we need to industrialize our production of rice.
Yeah, through mechanized farming, we can have a nice combination of mechanized farming and human labor to expand the rice sector, and we can grow rice in Liberia. We got adequate land to grow rice and make that, or just get an efficient rice importation system. It exists out there. There are many countries that got rice surpluses in the country that we're not even engaging, from Vietnam to other Southeast China countries out there. We can have a real good rice importation system if people were not trying to steal in this system again.
Isaac,
to the numbers.
Do you know how much the rice planting machine costs?
$20,000-$30,000?
No.
How much? It all depends on which machine now.
Boss man.
Yeah.
They got rice planter. Hold on, let me visit this site. It doesn't tell me, but let me send you the link. The rice planting machine is like $5,000.
Yeah, it all depends on what kind. Is that the one that handheld that you're moving?
No, it's the mechanized one.
Mechanized?
I mean the motorized one.
Yeah, you moving beyond it.
You're sitting on it and riding it, or moving behind it, fine.
5,000.
Even if it's 10,000.
But that's what I gotta put it to 20,000, but it's still affordable and it can still be used for. There can be shared services among these people.
Exactly.
And that's where the decentralized model for me comes in. Where
so the made in China one says it's $10,000 a piece. So you're not asking every farmer to pay $10,000.
No, you're not. That's why you build cooperatives.
You're simply saying, right, this cooperative, we have a machine. This other cooperative, we have a machine, and the farmers are charged based on the size of their farms.
Or that could be the investment by government to accelerate the process. But these things are tied in, George. If you can't do the analysis, you don't even know your entire list of farmers. You don't know specifically where they're located. You don't know how you can kind of put them into a cooperative, let them kind of work together. It's difficult. So it takes work to do all of this stuff. And a lot of times that effort to do this stuff is not apparent. All the time you say it, for government to work, government must work.
Government must work.
But people are not ready to work. These county agricultural officers, they are out there, but how much work are they doing? Sometimes when they ain't got transportation, they're limited. Sometimes when they say they don't get a pay, they won't work. So it got to be a coherent and cohesive effort to make all these things happen. If we don't do it, we're just wasting our time.
Okay, creating a rice supply chain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you got the people who plant the rice. You can have the people who harvest the rice. Okay, there are machines for that too.
There's machine for, trust me, George, there's machine for everything when it comes to agriculture. And there's a high level of technology in agriculture today that we don't even introduce. Because one, the limitations of energy and just the network that has to go in. So those two things affect it. So things are so tied in together in terms of achieving high level productivity in your economy. And we don't seem to realize, and we don't seem to want to get there. So that's the problem. But, I think we have beat the horse. I want us to talk a little bit about the MCC scorecard, but I don't know what the significance of that at this point. We can just say thank you to the government Liberia for being able to pass.
And thank you to the U.S. government for at least considering us to give us more money.
No, the money consideration has not even come in yet.
Oh, well, and we're screwed.
When you pass, now you're on the list for them to probably select you. And then when they select you, that's a whole different process. You got to start building your team. You got to put your project together. It's nearly a 2 to 3 year project. So
that's for the next administration or next government.
Basically for the next government, and hopefully they will be able to pass again, because the selection process to actually be engaged in a compact arrangement has other variables. How well do you do your first compact or your previous compact or your current compact if you're trying to do something concurrent? Is it affecting economic growth? Are you passing at least half of the 20 indicators that they measure on? So all of those are just factors. Do you have the capacity to be able to meet that need, that staffing need, that resource need? So all of those, and is your project that you're offering, is it, really a binding constraint that needs to be released, for your economy to flow? So what is it today?
Okay, I'm sending you a 15-second clip of so people can see what a rice harvester looks like. No, they just have to see it, Isaac.
No, I don't disagree with you. I will play it. I'm just saying
this is stuff people are doing by hand in Liberia.
Yes.
So if you're talking about we need to produce more rice, you need to be able to, not only do you need to produce more rice, you need to be able to produce it more efficiently. You need to be able to do it faster.
And that stuff, like the stuff you just sent, it changes stuff. It really does.
Isaac, you can cut 5 rice farms in a day.
So that's what it is, folks.
I mean, because you know,
it all depends on the size of the farm.
I can tell you, but it doesn't depend on the size of the farm at this point. Because Isaac, you know how they did it with my grandmother?
You said 5 farms a day. You said 5 farms a day. I was just saying.
How many people got 50-acre farms?
That's what I'm saying. If that small farm, they think it cost 20, 30. It's just about moving to those farm locations. That's what I'm saying. If you got equipment that decentralized, in area specific to specific kind of
so even if the government invested in that equipment as a part of the increase, the need to increase rice, and the government said, okay, to help you guys with this, we will cut the rice for you. Okay, all you have to do is pay for the fuel.
Hey, the government looking at it's all about our production, right? So, George, actually, you got to go back. The land they plant the rice in, have you de-rooted all those trees that you cut? So the clearing of land is very critical too. That's why our average production compared with Guinea, compared with Ivory Coast, is way lower. It would take the same acre land in Liberia today and compare the production of that land with land in other places, ours less, because we don't do the right level of de-rooting of our area, because again, no equipment. They may cut the tree down, but he able to de-root that tree.
Because so the way they used to cut the farm, the rice farm, everybody will go to this person's farm and they will cut the rice there. Then they will move to this other person's farm and they will cut the rice there. And they're literally using a sickle to cut the rice.
They still use it's still
you know.
Everything
so we can't really talk about increasing our rice production if we're not willing to use the modern tools to farm and increase the production.
I agree.
Okay, because of the limitation in labor, it means a farm can only be so big. You follow what I'm saying?
George, how much can one person do?
Right.
The strongest man in the town, he stays so limited.
Exactly. So if you don't mechanize, you're not going to increase your production. So what I want to know from the Ministry of Agriculture is, what is the mechanization plan for planting and harvesting rice?
And that's it. There's no holistic plan in my mind. It's just piece, everything piecemeal. Until we plan holistically for the country and really want to make that difference for our people, we'll not move forward. But yeah, man, I think it's been stimulating. We sorry for, changing the time, but are we expecting to go far with this time slot?
Well, I'm hoping that we do either a Tuesday or a Thursday or both at 10 a.m. my time.
So that's 1 o'clock my time, Tuesday and Thursday.
No, I'm 2 hours behind you now. We don't change our time.
Yes. Okay, 2 hours. So that's noon my time. So yeah, Tuesday, Thursday, noon. Okay, let's work on that. We can do that. That sounds good.
And then it moves it to an earlier time in Liberia too.
Okay. So Tuesday,
Right.
Thursday, noon. That's 5 o'clock in Liberia. All right, we'll do the flyer
All right.
and move out. So, folks, thank you for those who watched. We appreciate it. George, have a wonderful day.
Later.
All right.